In this video, we're going to be doing an overview of perhaps one of the strangest designs in Battletech. If you ask someone at any point in the history of Battletech if it was a wise idea to make a 20-ton frontline combat mech, they might balk at you and call you mad. Well, Ford Military Limited proved that being found on road dead is still true in the 25th century and beyond, and it is as true as it was during the 20th and 21st century. Without any further delay, let's get into another notch on Ford's failures. The Thorn. A light mech weighing in at 20 tons, the Thorn was born with a very flawed idea in mind. Ford Military Limited in the 25th century believed that it was possible to create a frontline combat unit designed to be in the thick of the fighting that weighed 20 tons, and later believed that cutting-edge technology would allow them to do it when they moved to retrofit the Thorn series after its questionable launch. The hype around its relaunch is noteworthy as well, as many would-be purchasers believed that this mech was going to open up possibilities for them militarily. Its reception upon its actual release and use is described as mixed, which of course really telegraphs that it's not a successful design. Though other variants would eventually change the Thorn's role in a variety of ways, this mech's first iterations are largely not satisfactory. Interestingly enough, this mech is more a component of the Hegemony armed forces than the SLDF, though both would make use of these machines. After the Ameris Civil War and the Second Succession War, the Thorn became a legacy model, and only a handful of downgrades were produced and exported during this time. The Thorn would largely vanish from inventories across the Inner Sphere. Ford would begin to manufacture and export these mechs once again with Comstar's blessing, though this would be complicated by the arrival of the new set of rulers on Terra a little later, namely the Word of Blake, who would find value in this chassis in their own way. The first model of the Thorn was the THE-F, which is identical to the later downgrade, the THE-S. But the most common model, and the one which was produced and received with the most hype before its questionable launch, is the THE-N. Powered by a 4-ton GM120 Fusion standard engine, the Thorn can be propelled up the field at a maximum speed of 97 km per hour, or 9 movement points in the tabletop game. This gives it a near identical speed to the Stinger and Wasp, two mechs which occupy the same weight bracket. What the Thorn lacks when compared to its immediate peers is jump jets, which reduces its maneuverability and also ensures that if it gets into a bad situation, it may not be able to get adequate distance over complex terrain features, or may not be able to slip past pursuers at an adequate speed to escape severe reprisals for its involvement in a battle. While not immobile, it's not exceptionally fast for its weight, and its lack of either raw speed or maneuvering means it cannot also function as a scout. For heatsinks, the Thorn doesn't need to and can't invest past its base level, which is more than okay given its onboard systems and lack of jump jets. In terms of weaponry, for a 20-ton mech, the Thorn shows off one of its relative strengths. To start with, it comes with a Zeus 5 LRM launcher, or an LRM-5, giving it an extended range beyond what most of its competitors can muster. This is used to pursue fleeing units predominantly, or provide fire support. The problem is, with the Thorn being designed as a line mech, and being an underperforming scout, this LRM is pressed into combat either against mechs with much more firepower at range, even in the same overall weight class like the Valkyrie or the Panther, and who are also significantly more armored, or it may now find itself being rushed at close ranges, meaning that it may only get a scattering of shots off, perhaps firing a moving target at high speed, reducing its accuracy against its incoming enemies. Once the engagement does reach short range, it is well served, for its weight, with twin Hellion Spitfire medium lasers, which can do real damage in close, but only minimally outperforms the Wasp or Stinger's damage output at this range. In our last portion over the individual components of this vehicle, we'll be looking at the Thorn Ends chassis. First, it uses endo steel on board to save 1 ton of weight, which can allow the Thorn to contribute to its own protection in the form of a case for its LRM ammunition, which can stop internal ammunition explosions from spreading, as well as allowing it to possess 4.5 tons of standard armor, making it the most heavily armored light mech for its tonnage, outdoing the Locust by half a ton. This level of protection is relatively impressive for its weight, but will rapidly falter when placed into a frontline position, especially due to its lack of jump jets, and without the enhanced mobility of the Locust. So while in theory it is more protected than, say, a Locust, it's actually less protected than the Locust in a real combat situation, due to the Locust being able to avoid fire, most principally. As it is intended to be used, the Thorn can be questionable. If attempted to be used as a scout, it will typically be isolated from the rest of its unit and destroyed, as the Terrans themselves would find out in their own reports to Ford when it was employed in such a role. When deployed as a light support mech, it can definitely offer some value, but it is often not packing the volume of support a light formation will be begging for in their time of need. It is a wrong-headed idea that in a heavier light mech may be more possible, but for its weight, there just isn't enough there to make this happen. Even with later technologies, such as with clan tech, the idea will still largely flounder, if only because its future opposition will likely have access to the comparable technology, meaning it just escalates what it will be forced to face later down the road. This is why the Thorn, in its first iterations, just lacks what is needed to thrive on the battlefield. But there have been a multitude of attempts to change this vehicle, either doubling down on the design or choosing to move in a new direction. During the Succession Wars, the THE-F would be resurrected in the form of the THE-S. These units are functionally identical to one another, only the latter was greenlit by Comstar, whereas the former was greenlit by the former Terran regime. The weapons are identical, as is their engine, but endo steel is not applied to this design. What this means for the Thorn is that it needs to remove the case and a half a ton of armor in order to keep the mech within its weight range. It's not a significant downgrade in performance for the Thorn, but it does make the mech less survivable as a result of reduced protection, and it has a higher chance of a catastrophic explosion taking place internally. This would see service in the original HAR, and in successor states during the Succession Wars. Another Star League-era variant of the Thorn comes in the form of its Royal variant, the one designated for use with elite units in the Star League Defense Forces. This would use sophisticated technology to attempt to advance the Thorn as far as they could, and even pushed it into effectively a 20-ton sniper role. It replaces the LRM system and reduces one medium laser to a small laser, in order to install an ER large laser. To make room inside of the mech, it mounts an XL engine on board, making it unfortunately less survivable. It does, however, install a mask with the last of its saved weight, giving it potentially the speed it needs to escape a bad situation. Overall, this is an improvement over the original, but frankly it performs a very different role, namely trying to pick off targets at range with an ER large laser rather than being a frontline battlemech. The final variant we'll discuss today is the N1, which was commissioned by Anastius Vogt, and it would see its first true engagements in the Battle of Tukayyid. It once again installs an XL engine and double heatsinks, as well as drops almost the entirety of its original weapons arrangement. It does all this to install an enormous PPC in the right arm, replacing its missile launcher, and installing a single small laser. It is essentially doubling down on the firepower that the former Royal model did, embracing the concept that the Thorn could operate as a sniper. For a 20-ton mech trying to pick off targets at range, this is not a bad investment at all, so long as it chooses the terms of its engagements with its enemies. The Thorn is a failed attempt to embrace a concept that is almost impossible to achieve. While there are circumstances where the base models may excel, it's not the norm, and they are consistently outshined by their 20-ton stablemates in terms of desirability. Namely, the Mercury, Locust, Stinger, and Wasp all prove themselves in their intended roles, while the waters are much murkier for the Thorn. Again though, this isn't to say that it's wholly without use. It's just to say that the ideas behind making it were flawed in their outlook for what could be achieved and where. Alternative models, like the Royal and later like the N1, would abandon its foundations as a design entirely, and would implement new technologies to make the Thorn have a more respectable reputation, and to be very far away from being a frontline Battlemech as they were originally described, instead becoming light direct fire support, with some armor to try to keep it alive should it gain the wrathful ire of one of its heavier targets. I'd say the Thorn has been a thorn in its enemy's sides, but for most of its history outside of some noteworthy exceptions, the Thorn has probably been its namesake to whoever bought it. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. There is new content on this channel very frequently, and I'd appreciate your support. Also, a huge thank you to all of the YouTube members who support this channel, as these videos are only possible because of viewers like you. With that, I will catch everyone in the comments section below.